My name is Melissa Guida-Richards, and I'm an adoptee and adoption educator, and we are going to be talking about 5 ways to support a spouse during reunion with their birth mom or birth parent. And for today's video, I am introducing my husband. This is Charles.
Hi.
And he has been with me through every step of the reunion.
Discovery through reunion.
But if you guys have seen the last video, I showed the trip to Colombia where we actually were able to meet in person, and I figured it's a perfect opportunity. He's wearing his nice shirt today. So let's talk about like 5 different ways on how to support a spouse. So what would number 1 be the most helpful for you?
Emotional support, just be there when you need me.
Can you share an example?
When you, not specifically for the birth mom, when you find out about your biological sisters, like you were really distraught and I need to like help you and just like be there and just like, I'm sorry that things didn't plan out in this nice beautiful bow and a little present thing, like it was kind of fucking messy.
Yeah, because a lot of times I think in like the news and stuff, and even in movies, they show reunion as, again, a happily ever after, but reunion isn't always like that.
No.
And luckily, like with both of my reunions, with my birth sisters that were adopted in a different family and with my mom, like they both started off pretty rocky, and that's because there's a lot of trauma involved in adoption, and from these different perspectives, from other adoptees and from like my mom who placed her children. So having him help me and just be able to listen, I think, without like judgment, because so many people, I think, during like my initial reunion, they were just like, well, just suck it up, you found your sisters, be happy. It's not that easy.
It's not that simple.
It's not that simple. And like the same thing with my birth mom. I think I got like a lot of negativity from my adoptive family, and they weren't very happy with my birth siblings, but with my birth mom, it was a little more supportive, and my dad was still alive then, and he like immediately was like, go visit.
Very supportive.
Yeah, he was very supportive, but it was a little difficult because I was worried about like my mom and my dad being upset.
Yeah.
So how did you help with that, do you think?
Specifically with like your parent, like your adoptive parents?
Yeah, like with emotional support from me during that time.
Is I just stayed my course and didn't let other perspectives and other opinions affect how I was going to affect our relationship and our connection with that particular part of your life. It was something completely different, completely separate. Like it's like, okay, you might not like it, but she wants to do it, so sucks to be you.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so that would be the first one. What do you think helped for the birth mom reunion, like planning and actually going on the trip?
Driver's license.
So I think number 2 would be like actions,
Put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah, putting your money where your mouth is, supportive actions of a spouse. So it wasn't just like emotional help, it was like him physically being willing to do work for the reunion. So since we had to go to Colombia, we had to travel through Bogota, which is very hectic, a lot of traffic. If you've been in New York City and drove there or have been in a cab there, it's kind of that vibe. And one of the things we kept hearing when we were planning the trip is like, oh, like, how are you gonna drive in Bogota? Like, are you gonna be okay there? And my husband he was like, I'll do it. Like, don't worry about it. I drive in New York City all the time. And you just kind of took charge of the car rental and all of that stuff you did. Right?
Yeah. Just sat there until you finally got the car and the refreshment was available, of course. That was how it went. Once you got the car and inspected it and hopped in and just plowed through the city streets.
And taking initiative with driving, he looked up all the rules and regulations of the country, whether he
International travel, maybe different licenses, what have you. I didn't Fun fact.
Was it because you had US citizenship or just?
No, it's just that's the role they want. That for that country, for Colombia, what we went to, you just need a valid license.
You're like, don't go to random countries.
Don't go to country with a U.S. license. It's not going to work everywhere. But for when we went, it was fine because I had a up-to-date license in another country, and it would just count as proof that I know how to drive.
And then I think also helping with the travel arrangements in general. He has traveled a lot of places. He's been very lucky. That way I have very little travel experience. My parents brought me here, and then they brought me back to Colombia when they picked up my brother. And I traveled like
Because my brother was shopping.
and I traveled 2 other times, but within the United States on a plane. But I haven't traveled back to Colombia and other countries. I was very worried. I get very anxious when it comes to traveling. So he took like the initiative when it came to going through security.
It's like to go very fast, like good stuff on. If you've been traveling, you know like, what to do there. If you haven't been traveling, it's a long haul on the red tape. It's very annoying, but you have to do it. So that's the big part that I did. It's like I'll handle the luggage. You just focus on the regulation of dealing with reuniting with your family.
And I think also, even if I was an experienced traveler, like there were decent odds that because I'm emotionally drained and like high strung during that time, that I would forget. So it's good to have a support partner there who is also like aware of what you need to do. So like if I had any questions, he was there, and even if you noticed, I was just like so exhausted because I barely slept the week before.
Yeah.
And even though he was tired, he
Fucked up and
I
kinda
mean,
got through it.
yeah, like it feels rude to say, but like when you are struggling or going through something very emotional, like having a partner willing to basically take the sacrifice of not focusing on themselves as much and like catering to you for that time that you're in need is really, really important. What's another physical way that you helped?
It was kind of what you were just saying, and how something we mentioned the first time we recorded this. Like, not always going to be 50-50. You want an average of 50-50 in your relationship, but you need to have fluctuation for situational differences on who needs the most assistance. So in that time, I'm traveling, not that big a deal. She's reuniting with her birth family, kind of a big deal. So being the one to just be like, hey, we need to do this stuff with our luggage, we need to do this stuff with the plane ticket, we need to do this stuff with our passports. Being that person to just like simplify the things as much as possible and just blow through it is important. And being that person for your significant other is really, really important for them to be able to do what they have to do and take care of themselves through a very traumatic event.
And I think another thing is that genuinely I'm really, really bad at like focusing on myself. Because I guess like it's the thing that all adoptees go through. Like we're constantly told that we're ungrateful or we're not good enough by society or by our adoptive families. We have like really high expectations to like fill, and
just be happy. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Be happy.
See, he listens. I think like, just having him there to remind me, like, hey,
it's okay to be human and have emotions. It's weird.
It is though. Number 3 on how to support your spouse.
Education in this thing that they're passionate about. So we're talking about adoption and stuff, but this does kind of translate to other fields of interest. He's someone who shows an interest in what your spouse is doing.
You're like, here's some relationship advice.
So for my case, it's seeing other adoptees and other adoptee voices on social media, read the articles, see the news stories, and have something to talk to your spouse about in their field of interest. So that you're not just always sitting there like, okay, I'm just gonna be your ear to listen to and just have you just talk at me and not communicate at all, just be a basically a breathing statue. It's no fun for anyone.
So like active listening, and like you've probably seen throughout this video by now, or will, if I talk about something adoption related, he gets passionate about it now too. He'll bring up articles or news things that he sees, and he'll be like, have you seen this thing and what those adopted parents did? I'm like, no, but tell me all about it. I'll mention something that I saw, and he'll be like, oh, so they didn't do X, Y, and Z, or their problem was like this, they were putting themselves first, and I'm just like, oh my god, like he actually is like learning and listening.
Yeah, you have to. That's how you continue your relationship, is being passionate about the other person's interests.
And I think like some couples struggle with things like this because I feel like there's a fear of not wanting to overstep sometimes.
Yeah, but that's gonna be an individual basis like relationship thing, where like I know if I say something incorrect about adoption, like you'll just say like, oh, actually this happens. I'll be like, okay, didn't know that, now I do, moving on. Don't be scared to be wrong. It's fine, we're all learning.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's been my catchphrase with all this adoption stuff. So another aspect of education would be,
the language. Since she is an international adoptee, there's a language difference, and I was lucky enough to have taken Spanish throughout schooling, and so I had to kind of like refresh my repertoire of words the trip, so I could actually help when my mom was not available to translate, because she was the main person to translate while we were there, and she wasn't always available because there's other things she had to do because she runs a business and stuff. So I need to be at least fluent enough to get us like food and water and bathroom breaks while we're traveling in an international country.
but you like practiced at home too.
I did, like with the kids, because they're 75% Colombian, so they should know some of these words as well. So I practiced speaking to them in Spanish. Even one of them, a younger one, actually really likes it. The older one is not as passionate about it, but we'll work on that. And speaking to Spanish in her, and when we can get a couple things back and forth, so we're more comfortable speaking the language when we traveled. So it's not just, oh, take Rosetta Stone right before some other program, right before you get on the plane. It's the whole time leading up to the trip of all the prep work and everything.
And I think also the educational aspect too ties in with the adoption and language, because I don't think at first, this is something that we struggled a little bit with, is I was very sensitive about like learning Spanish, and that's like, there's been like an emotional barrier to me learning it, understanding it, and like listening. I can understand a lot more because my parents spoke multiple languages in the house, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish too. So it's been easier for me to understand stuff, and even just like texting back and forth with my family on WhatsApp. But like speaking it back, I've always had like, I'm a perfectionist, just me, but I don't like being wrong. So at first when I would say words or phrases at home,
Look at your nails, look at your nails.
words or phrases at home, and he would correct how I pronounced something, I used to take it like super personally, and like didn't understand that like it wasn't even necessarily his fault. We're both very honest people, but he would just be like, it's like this, and I'd be like, oh no, I'm doing it wrong, you're making fun of me.
No, just trying to help. Squeaky voice, trying to help.
But that, I think learning that
was a sore spot, and to approach it differently, not just like, hey, this is wrong, this is right, learn that. Be like, oh, do you want to try saying it this way, or I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that, and like, let's try Google Translate or some other app, and just like approaching it not just like, you're wrong.
Number 4, the fourth tip on how to support your spouse during reunion with their birth mom or birth family
is get a support network for yourself, so that you are available to them when they're going through those hard times. As we said earlier, it's not always 50-50, that's an average you would strive for. So you need to prep yourself and have someone to talk to, whether that be a therapist, a parent, a sibling, a friend, or whatever it may be, so that when you're in the trenches, as it were, and they're relying on you to lean on, that you are at your best self, so that you can be there for them and not just be like, well, this is too much for me to handle, and back off and make it worse for them. So for me, it was
strengthening the relationship with my mother, and also talking with my own friends and stuff about going on this trip and going and doing these things and everything, and not just practicing language, being comfortable being wrong in language myself, because I'm also learning. And I'm going to pronounce things wrong, I'm going to get the wrong grammar, it's going to happen, just be comfortable doing it and move on.
And also, it may help for other people. I know, like, typically not a lot of men like therapy, but he does therapy, so he goes every other week. So did you bring it up in therapy?
Several times, yeah.
So like, that's something that you can do too, actually talking to a trained professional who's gonna give you pretty good advice about communication, hopefully. Did it help you?
It helped me a lot. It does take some time to find a therapist. Sorry. I lucked out when I found one, and he helped me get on different ways of regulating my own emotions, of being comfortable with doing things that I don't like doing, like speaking the language, getting restraining relationship with my mother, because that was not an easy thing for me at the time. Now we're really close again, but there was a period there when it wasn't, that was not the truth. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that got me through before we left, and then after we got back, it was like, hey, I learned all this, traumatic stuff while we were there. We should probably talk about that too. So it's not just like get ready for battle, charge in, and you're done. You're a person. You have to continue living and everything. You can open those lines of communication with whoever your support group is throughout the process.
Oh, I just remembered something. But on the physically taking actions, another thing that he helped is with my medication and just health in general. I am disabled and I have a lot of medications that I have to take daily, and when life is chaotic and you're going through a really difficult time, you probably are gonna miss a few days, or if you're not paying attention enough. So he was there to remind me or just check in, and we talked about it beforehand, so it wouldn't be like a fight, you're not gonna, you think I'm just not paying attention or something. I didn't want to do that, so we had a conversation about that beforehand. So we were clear that he would be checking in, and then even afterwards, when we got back, I noticed that the week or so after we got back, I was getting really bad at remembering to take my medication, and I would take some and not remember the rest, and then that was starting to affect me mentally and physically. So I had to ask him and be like, hey, you supported me really great during this, but I need some extra help right now. And I think being willing to be open about things that you need help with, you were then able to check in with me.
5. You did put your money where your mouth is. We did support yourself so you can support them. Another thing would be celebrating the milestones and enjoying the parts that are fun. So actually forcing them to reflect not just on the harsh stuff that you have to go through, but making them reflect on, hey, we just went to a local town in your native country and rode on a train. Not a train, like a transport train, like a fun train. We'll show you videos about that later. But we went on these fun little excursions with family members, and that was really cool. How we actually had time with her biological mother, with her biological family, cousins and siblings and everything, and saying hey, don't just think this is a trip that's going to rehash all this trauma, but also a trip that we had fun with family. That is awesome. Think about that. Focus on the good.
That's another hard thing for me as an adoptee, because I've always had a very strained relationship with my adopted family, particularly extended family, because I never fit in the whole racism issue. But over time, I've been able to grow that with my parents, and me and my mom are really close now. But just from the get-go, I think for the trip, I was have very low expectations, so that way you're not disappointed. But with that, I think having him there, being also very excited for going to new towns, and we went on a hike to see the thermal waterfalls. He loves the outdoors and stuff, so he was down to go and explore and have fun. And I'm typically more hesitant and laid back and stuff. And so seeing him have fun also relaxed me too. And it was oh, we're here, we're bonding. Yeah. He's getting along with my family, and it's supposed to be a happy occasion. And just having that reminder and you there to support that and have joy with me. Yes. Okay. What are some things from the trip that really made an impression on you? Whether it was stuff that we did together or moments with my family.
One thing that's just the first one that pops in my head was actually the volcanic falls, not volcanic falls, the heated waterfalls.
The thermal waterfalls.
Thermal waterfalls. And how your brother was actually like helping you get across the rocks and everything, and he also tried to help me a couple of times. I was like, I'm good, dude, focus on her. And how like that was really sweet and nice, and a good moment that you reflected on later and like experienced at in the moment for there. It was really nice and good, and I really enjoyed that part of the excursions because it wasn't just like, oh, seeing this cool nature thing, which I enjoy, but also this family bonding moment for making sure that no one falls into so that was one. Another one was probably taking care of your bio mom's like animals, because she has a bunch of them, and she has a few puppies, and so we suspected that they had, I'm a vet tech, and the regulations on getting prescription medication is a little different in Colombia for veterinary stuff, so we got them broad spectrum dewormer and some flea tick control stuff, just over like that you could just get at the store no problem, and gave it to them so that they were protected and healthy. So that was a cool thing because it not only was good for the animals, obviously, but made me feel good as like I'm contributing to this trip, and then it was a bonding moment for me and her biological mother because she felt really taken care of, that I care about her animals. And so that was a big moment for us to bond on this trip. That wasn't, so like, it's not just your bio mom, it's also my mother-in-law technically. So.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. I didn't really think about that much before we went, but while we were there, I kind of had a light bulb moment, and I was like, wow, he had to get approval from another mom. Oops, like, my bad. Didn't even realize that might be potentially stressful.
Another thing I enjoyed on the trip, spending time with my mom, which was a happy accident because we have been rebuilding our relationship for several years now, right? I'll get it. And so being able to hang out with her like I used to when I was a kid and everything, and practicing Spanish with her, and just hanging out and having someone that I could talk to and lean on during these times was really important for me and really helpful.
And just piggybacking off of that, happy accident with me also, because me and his mom have had a very tumultuous relationship as well. He was like her baby, his first child, so there was a little tension there when we got together and got married, and which is understandable in some families, but this trip, I think it allowed us both to understand each other a lot more, allowed us all to understand each other a lot more, and for everyone to see that like we want relationships with family. We all need to also respect boundaries and talk and communicate. And I think also a thing that helped was on this trip, your mom really saw that I am active in connecting with family, and I would say like, hey, call your sister or go do this, do that. He has ADHD. He forgets a lot of these things.
All the time.
Unless he's reminded. He'll set reminders in his phone to be like, hey, I need to call or check in with my wife or something like that. And that used to get me insulted, and I think that's something that your family would get insulted of. So having this trip and like seeing and spending more time with everybody in person, I think that was really cool to be able to reinforce that we're all a family, we all love each other. This is how we can create a really strong relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. Next time, if you guys want, we can go over top 5 like problems we had. Luckily, we didn't have many, but like, we can talk about like some of the struggles and
Driving.
And what we did to help, because this was more of just like overview and tips on what you guys can do, but like actual things that we did that we needed some extra help with, or we needed to spend more time learning about. But yeah, so make sure you comment, subscribe. I'm really trying to focus on putting out at least one YouTube video a week from now on to grow my channel. That's my 2024 New Year's resolution. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and don't forget to get comfortable being uncomfortable.